Excellencies, innovators, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the continuation of the virtual innovation exhibit. My name is Stephanie Rambler. I'm a Sustainable Development Officer at the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, and I'm so glad you're able to join us today. As we begin, I'd like to invite you to take a poll that you'll see in the Slido field on your screen, so that we can have a sense of where you're dialing in from, and we'll share the results of the poll a little bit later. To open the session, it is my pleasure to welcome to the floor His Excellency Mr. Andres Pildagovic, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Latvia to the United Nations, co-chair of the 2021 STI Forum. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Excellencies, innovators, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining this afternoon's virtual innovation exhibit. We are delighted that the STI Forum is back and the virtual innovation exhibition is also back. Continuing from this morning's dialogue, the innovation exhibit showcases exceptional innovators from around the world who are implementing initiatives to accelerate sustainable solutions in their local countries and communities. These 25 innovators are the winners of the UN's annual innovation competitions of 2020 and 2021. They were selected from almost 1,000 applications, indicating the diversity, dynamism, and depth of initiatives underway. Their work addresses COVID-19 associated disruptions, as well as accelerating solutions to long-term obstacles to sustainable development. This afternoon's panel discussions will showcase innovations in the areas of supporting vulnerable communities and improving learning. The pandemic has highlighted inequalities and the inadequacies of existing systems to address differing needs and eliminate vulnerabilities, particularly among the poor, the elderly, women, people with disabilities, migrants, refugees, and those who lack social protection. Today, we will learn about the transformative innovations to address some of these, such as online sign language interpretation service to empower the global deaf community, and a social enterprise designed to reduce gender-based violence by shifting mindsets on gender norms. When it comes to learning, COVID-19 is perhaps the single largest disruptor of global schooling in history. In April 2020, 90% of students were out of school. Presently, 27 countries have countrywide school closures. There have been much advancement in digital learning, but those without connectivity tend to be further left behind. To help fill the many gaps in this sector, we will hear about game-changing innovations, including a tablet-based app to help students master literacy and numeracy, and a practical reality TV series featuring high school students using local materials to conduct scientific experiments. This exhibit is the product of multi-stakeholder collaboration between UNDESA, the Global Innovation Exchange, the Secretary General's 10th member group, and of course, the innovators, whom we will hear from shortly. I congratulate all of them and hope that these presentations will inspire and motivate many others across the world. I thank you. I wish you a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Excellency, for setting the stage and for your leadership of the forum this year. Before we get started, I wanted to share that we have a wide range of regions represented among our participants. It looks like we have 40% from North America, 22% from Africa, 17% calling in from Europe, 15% from Asia Pacific, 5% from Latin America and the Caribbean, and 2% from other regions. So we have a wide range of participants. We have, I think, latest count is 200 in this session. We had 400 a bit earlier, so we are reaching This is one of the benefits of the virtual format, is that we can reach people from all over the world. So without any further delay, I would like to turn the floor over to Sweta Govani, who will lead us through the next bit of the program. Over to you, Sweta.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. So we are running a little behind. So really quickly, if you are interested in panel 2, which is on innovations for vulnerable communities, you're in the right place. If you're interested in panel 3, which is the first of 2 education panels that we have today, it's happening on a different link, which should be accessible to you through the announcement, which is on a blue bar in your Q&A section. So it's on the right. If you're on your desktop or on your mobile, you should be able to switch over and click over and join the education panel from there. But again, if you're interested in the vulnerable communities panel, you're in the right place. And I'll hand it over to Kippy Joseph, our moderator for that panel. Over to you, Kippy.
Thank you, Sweta, and I'm pleased to be here with all of you. Welcome to panel 2, which is focused on innovations for vulnerable communities, part of the virtual innovation exhibit hosted by our friends gathering us here together today, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs in partnership with the Global Innovation Exchange. I'll introduce myself and then I will get to the others. I'm Kippy Joseph, a senior advisor on gender at the Global Innovation Fund, and currently also the co-chair of the Equity and Inclusion Task Force of the International Development Innovation Alliance, which is also known as IDEA. I'm so pleased to be able to share the Zoom room with the innovators and today's session panelists. They are the winners of the 2020 and 2021 STI Forum Call for Innovations. I've had the real pleasure of getting to know these entrepreneurs and innovators, and I can tell you that you are in for a real treat. They are deeply thoughtful and extremely smart and extraordinarily courageous. So your job in the audience is to match their energy. You have several ways of interacting, including the Q&A feature on the right of your screen, where you can post relevant questions. And I will ask some of these questions to our panelists before the close of our session. When posting your question, you will be prompted to add your name. You can also add your organization if you like. In addition, you can like and respond to other questions and comments that are posted here. So it's just a reminder that I'll make to please be respectful and to note that any questions that are not appropriate or not directly relevant to our dialogue or not in line with the UN Charter will be deleted. So thank you very much for joining us and for being active participants. I'd like to move into the heart of the discussion now. Our time is short and the issues that we are discussing are of critical importance to the UN goals and really to our collective imperative as a global community. So our panel is really made up of change makers who have been grouped together because they use innovation to accelerate the pace of change for vulnerable communities. But what does vulnerable in this sense really mean? You will hear from each of them about how they advance the rights or the services or the agency of people who are deaf or are experiencing debilitating levels of depression and anxiety, or are the survivors of gender-based violence or members of the LGBTIQ communities. What is it that ties these populations together, and does defining them as vulnerable even serve a purpose? I asked this question of our panelists, and what I heard back was a real education. Let me share that with you to set the stage for our showcase of their critical work. First, I'll say that their communities are vulnerable, but so are we all. Vulnerability is not a substitute word for weakness or disadvantage. Rather, addressing vulnerability brings into focus what we share as human beings and what we should expect of the policies and social structures that organize society, not to mention defining expectations for laws and a state that is responsive to universal human needs. This is a paraphrasing of vulnerability theory, and it is a most emboldening lens through which to understand these innovations as a group. However, it is also true that the specific populations we will hear about suffered increased negative impact from the global pandemic of COVID-19, coupled with decreased access to services. So that sadly they have in common. And it is in addition to the widespread stigma and discrimination, violence and harassment, restrictive norms and policies, and even criminalization of behaviors that put many in these groups at heightened risk to begin with. So it is not in question that these vulnerabilities are part of complex social problems that cross-cut various domains, which are social, economic, cultural, and physical. There is no one-stop solution, and anyone who showed up to an innovation panel today thinking they were going to see some shiny gadgets that can solve these problems will be sorely disappointed. Any gadget could only address a simplification, and simplifying is distorting. What we need to do is see the range of complexity with clear eyes. So really, it is an advantage for us as a global audience to think about these communities together across geography, color, ability, gender expression, age, and sexuality. One thing that links them together is that vulnerable communities have a unique ability to adapt in complex situations. And equally, that change for them will be driven by locally responsive solutions to the specific problems they face. The innovations generated to meet their needs in the last 18 months alone are instructive for us all. The pandemic has shown how thin the line that separates advantage from disadvantage, and that line is vulnerability. So let's learn what has worked in what can arguably be called the worst of times for the most vulnerable among us. And I'm going to, with that, kick off our first discussion round, which is really introductions, so that you can hear from these amazing innovators about their ideas and their activities. So I'm going to start by asking them, what is your innovation and how does it contribute to changing the systems that perpetuate vulnerability? And I will invite Ali and Wamik to please start us off by introducing yourself and answering that question.
First of all, thank you so much, UNSCI Forum, for inviting us. Good morning and good evening, wherever you are. Wamik is my eyes because I'm blind by birth.
And I lead my ears because I am deaf by birth.
And we are a Deaf Talk team. We are here to bridge the communication gap for the deaf community. Just imagine if you visit to the doctor, but unable to explain the pain. That's 500 million deaf community facing that particular challenge every single day in their life. But if we talk about the Asian statistics, it's not less than it. It's 256 million who are facing that particular challenge because of limited sign language interpreters. And we are here to break that gap. How we started?
So I was born deaf in Pakistan, and due to lack of sign language interpreter, I was unable to continue my education. So we decided to move to the New York for availing sign language facility. And with the help of interpreter, I was able to complete my computer engineering. I am the first deaf who did this in Pakistan. So after 15 years, we came back to Pakistan only to realize the challenge is still there.
We are bridging this gap by providing online sign language interpretation services through our mobile application, which is available on both iOS and Android platform. We have piloted in Pakistan back in 2018, now scaled to Sri Lanka and Singapore. It's a marketplace where we connect deaf community with qualified sign language interpreter on just one click without any waiting time via video calling solution. We are also adopting the technology for artificial intelligence. So without human interpretation, we can process that with automatic mode. And we are also connecting with VoIP services. So those who doesn't have a smartphone can utilize these services. People, in short, call us Ubers for sign language interpreters.
Thank you so much. I have always appreciated your tagline, and I think you summarize what you do so well. I'm going to ask Fanis to please share who you are and what your innovation is now, please. And Fanis, you're still on mute. It always happens this way.
Okay, I was muted actually. Sorry about that. A very good evening or good morning, depending on where you are from. My name is Fanis Lisyagali. I work for Healthcare Assistance Kenya, if you like, HAC GBV Helpline 1195. I am in a country where gender-based violence is reported on a daily basis to be happening. And we have actually innovated a process that is enabling women to speak out, to speak up, be able to be helped. And so we have an innovation that is reaching out to all women and girls across the country. During this COVID time, Healthcare Assistance Kenya was able to help lots of women by remaining on call 24 hours a day. We received enormous calls from survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. You can imagine, late in the night, there is no transport. You have no money to make a call. And here you have happened to know about Helpline 1195, which is a toll-free helpline. By just calling that number during this time of COVID, from March up to the end of last month, which is April, we have supported over 7,000 people. We've saved their lives. And so this technology has worked very well for us.
Thank you, Fanis. It is such important work that you do as the shadow pandemic of GBV is omnipresent. I want to ask Sanya, please, to follow you, to introduce yourself and to share a bit about your innovation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sanya, and our program is called Pursukoon Zindagi, or Peaceful Life. And what our program does is it increases access to mental health support by building the capacity of community health workers to identify mental health needs and then help people build a pathway to their goals. Now, these goals include better physical health, adherence to treatment, better, healthier interpersonal relationships, as well as improving financial situation. So our aim is to screen for common mental health disorders and identify the problem and address it upstream before the situation worsens and clinical care is required. Some of the key challenges which our communities, the communities that we serve, face, it's as much about lack of resources as a lack of demand due to the deprioritization and limited awareness of mental health in the first place. So our model addresses both these components. We generate demand in the communities that we work through awareness raising and community conversations. And at the same time, we increase access to mental health services through our trained lay counselors. Now, we do this by increasing the touch points through which people can access mental health support, integrating it within their routine lives. We're really trying to make it almost as hard to avoid these services as it is currently to avail it. So this is done by integrating these services within primary care, within their routine treatment for chronic illnesses, as well as infectious diseases, and even their workplaces. Since the program was launched in 2014, over 250,000 people have entered the mental health support system through our intervention.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate hearing the numbers because they really drive home the scale of your enterprise. Let's please turn to Vikrant to talk about your innovation.
Thank you, Kipi. Namaste. This is Vikrant from Kathmandu, Nepal. I'm the founder of Fight Back, Before I explain you about the innovation, I would like to say a few words about myself. Violence against women and girls was something that always touched my heart. When my daughter was born, I felt sense of urgency to address it. I was working as a software engineer in a bank in Nepal. I've been practicing martial arts all my life. I quit the bank to pursue a career to be a social entrepreneur, which was a big risk. So the innovation was to basically combine education with self-defense and to create an easy to learn educational program that would build mental, vocal, and physical skills to reduce the risk of sexual violence. That was one part of the innovation. The other part of the innovation was to engage the stakeholders, like men, boys, parents, and teachers, to make them more responsible, to educate them on how to fight against sexual violence. Fight Back is a program that builds individual capabilities to prevent and
Have we lost Vikrant? Well, no doubt we will get him back and we will hear more about Fight Back momentarily.
Hello?
Hi, Vikrant. Do you want to turn your video off so that you might preserve some bandwidth? And we lost you as you were talking passionately about Fight Back.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, which point was I in? Could you please, because I think I was just speaking. could you
Yes,
let me know?
You were talking about the programming and how the programming works.
Okay. So yeah, basically Fight Back is a education program which builds mental, vocal, and physical skills for women and girls to reduce the risk of sexual violence. The other part of the program engages men, boys, parents, and teachers and educates them to reduce the risk of sexual violence. So from the very start, what we've attempted to do is to mainstream a program like Fight Back to be the part of the education system, because what we believe in is, as in subject, it is as important as maths. Till date, we have reached around 25,000 plus women and girls and around 13,000 plus stakeholders. And we are still in the process of growing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vikrant. And what we will have a little time to discuss is the way in which each of these innovations is not just focused on direct service, but really embedded in the systems that they are trying to change for the shift in social norms or policies that enable greater equality for the communities that you're serving. So thank you for highlighting that to us. Finally, I'm going to turn to Ray to please introduce yourself and your innovation.
Good evening, good morning, everyone. My name is Raymond Kuyala. With the girls from Zimbabwe. My innovation is called Beyond the Pandemic Within Pandemics. So to introduce what the innovation is all around, read one of these that we say, that is the LGBTQIA community. You see, my customers who are tolerant of me, we chat and laugh. A day well spent that can continue for a week until weekend, when I frequent social bars, clubs to relax, dance, and share drinks with the friends. This is no more because of coronavirus. I do not have a social life anymore. I wish I can silently take a sleeping tablet and die alone quietly. So growing up in Zimbabwe, where I witnessed one of my relatives giving birth to an intersex person, really motivated me to work with the LGBTI community. And for the past 7 years, I've been working with the LGBTI community. And during the pandemic, we have realized inadequacies within the structures which we have, and this has been worsened by the pandemic. And beyond the pandemic, within pandemics, is an innovation that tries to address human rights violations, access to health services, including access to PrEP, HIV, and food, which is nutritional support, especially for people living with HIV from the LGBTI community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Raymond just led us into the reason that we're all here convened today, which is that the pandemic has required many of us to adapt in ways that we did not think were possible, that we would not have imagined and would not have had reason to imagine. But as I mentioned at the top, vulnerable communities are uniquely well positioned to adapt. And you all, the panelists here as innovators, have seen opportunities in the very difficult context of the pandemic. So I'd like to ask you each to reflect on how the pandemic has significantly affected the work you just described. And Sonia, I'd like to start with you, please.
Thanks, Kippy. So in January 2020, we were in the process of scaling up our integration in primary care services. And by mid-March, Pakistan went into lockdown, as did the services where we had just started setting up our systems. Now, at that time, there was a lot of information available about COVID-19 and SOPs, the need for social distancing and lockdowns. However, this information wasn't necessarily contextualized for resource-constrained communities. So these were communities who were living on a day-to-day basis in cramped housing. And nor were there really systems in place to help people process this information and act on it. So we quickly realized that what was needed was an empathy bridge between an overburdened healthcare system and the patient who couldn't access care in the same way. So we got to work building capacity of our 70+ counselors who are now based at home to provide integrated care and support care for mental health as well as home management of COVID. And by mid-April, we launched the Pursukun Zindagi COVID-19 mental health response. A core component for this was to provide continued support to patients who tested for COVID at our healthcare facility, at our partner facilities, and were now in isolation and quarantine, who needed their increased risk of anxiety, depression, and loneliness to be addressed. Since that 12 months, we have provided support to over 42,000 people. What this signifies, what each of these signify, is a goal made, planned, and achieved in a period of immense struggle. So just to highlight some key stories from what this meant was, this includes a young mother of 5 who was recently diagnosed with breast cancer and was now COVID positive, living on less than $1 a day, and was just unable to think about what her future could look like. And she was supported with the will and the way to the treatment pathways available to her to get her initiated on treatment. This also includes a young man who lost his brother very early on in the pandemic and now was so frightened to leave his house that he couldn't continue to financially support his family. And then he was supported through different techniques of systematic desensitization to not only get him to get back to work, but he was also, towards the end of his treatment, able to visit us in person to tell us about the progress that he'd made. And then lastly, this includes, amongst so many others, a new mother who tested positive very soon after giving birth and was just very fearful of being close to her infant. And she was guided on the best practices on how to safely do so that her baby could get the nutrition that it needed. So for us, COVID really put us in a position where we had to redefine what pathways to care and treatment provision of mental health could look like, and put us cause us to push our systems to adapt and respond to the current needs.
That sounds, I feel I've heard that. Let's hear from you, Vikrant. I feel you have a similar story to share.
Moment. So I'll try with my video because, I've got all these lights and, let me try with this. So when the pandemic started at first, we thought this would be the end of our enterprise, because we specialize in providing in-person training at scale. And with the pandemic starting, everything was starting to get canceled. During the starting of the global lockdown, what we started to do was we started to pilot if the training could be done through video conferencing technology like Zoom. And we started to pilot things, develop a prototype, started to train young girls. And what we found out was, to our surprise, it was pretty effective and pretty efficient. And we trained around 1,500 to 2,000 girls within 3 to 4 months. And in that period, we were able to generate a little bit of revenue too. So it was kind of like a silver lining for us. Then the second part, what we did was we shared our instructional videos in social media, especially in TikTok, where some of the videos went into millions, So what that made us think was, maybe there is a demand for this content, and maybe our service delivery is not just in person. Maybe you should think about pivoting towards online. So now we are in the process of developing our online platform and hopefully launching it soon. Even in the in-person side, we were able to execute our biggest project till date, which was training about 16,000 girls and boys across 69 low-income schools from December till March this year. And it was a UNICEF project, and we did it, and the impact was pretty good. So all in all, it has been a very challenging time, but it has made us resilient and has made us forced to think more innovatively. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, I understand that. And I think that story gets repeated. So let me ask Fanis, did you experience a similar opportunity to use social media or different platforms to reach your audience? And Fanis, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, as we want to address gender-based violence in Kenya, we experienced challenges because our program is actually to enhance survivors' access to GBV services. And during this time of COVID, so many survivors could not access services easily. One, because of the lockdowns, curfew that was put in place in order to curb the pandemic, and also the stay-at-home program. So it was very difficult for survivors to go to these services and access them immediately. So the rapid response service at Healthcare Assistance Kenya through the toll-free helpline helped these survivors in a big way. We were able to learn that we could work with other organizations. The partnership actually grew bigger and bigger, including Ministry of Health, because we could get not just survivors calling the helpline, even those people who suspected themselves to be positive, COVID positive, would call seeking telecounseling services, which is our business at the call center. There are those who could not even go to the police to report any accident. They would call 1195. So our service was overstretched. We supported women, expectant mothers, who sometimes threatened to deliver even by the roadside. So the program did not just support survivors of gender-based violence. What we noted also that was too challenging for us were the numbers of girls and children who suffered sexual violence, defilement, which led to child pregnancies and then eventually child marriages. It was an ugly thing to do. You can imagine a small child or maybe an infant being, experiencing defilement during this COVID-19 period. We got a very sensitive case of an infant, 4 days old. You can imagine listening to such a story, having been defiled by her stepfather. And it was not just that little infant, also the brother who was 3 years old. He was also sodomized. So these are some of the challenges we thought perhaps are being created or coming about because of mental health issues. So within our program, we noted there is also a program that should be introduced in order to curb GBV. Mm-hmm. In 2017, we supported a little boy, and we thought that was the end of GBV on little children whose genitals were completely mutilated and thrown away. So some of these issues, they also affect even us counselors who are supporting survivors of gender-based violence. So we learned that there's a lot to do. Information sharing is key. Communities, vulnerable communities, are not even aware of good services such as this one, the toll-free helpline and other services. Thank you so much.
Yes. And Fanis, I do want to take a moment to just pause and recognize that it is part of our job as the global community to witness the horrors that some of which you have just shared and that are experienced by many members of different vulnerable communities that are represented by the innovators on this call. So thank you for keeping us close to the issues and not letting us hide away in our Zoom room from what is really happening in our world. And I'm going to ask, please, Raymond, to have the hard task of following that by describing in just a few words, because we are running short on time, how your innovation is part of, it has pandemic in the title. So you've really seen the opportunity. Is there any way that you would reflect on how the opportunity was universal or generalizable for our audience to learn from as we move to close this round of questions?
Thank you very much. I think for us, while the pandemic has really had a number of challenges, especially challenges related to the for the LGBTQIA community. But the pandemic is reaching about the vulnerability and to adapt and adopt intentional and long-term sustainable ways. I think really taught us that universally we should think more around is how best we should make sure that these vulnerabilities are not individual responsibilities.
Thank you, Raymond.
But the responsibilities of everyone, because as far as we are talking about sustainability. Thank you.
No, thank you. I apologize that your audio seems to be going in and out, but I think we are all motivated by your passion to look your innovation up on the internet and learn more about what it is that you do. and hopefully we will get to hear how we can support you. So to close out the questions and get to an introduction, we have a visitor with us I'm excited to introduce. Let me just ask Ali and Wamik to, in a few words, please summarize how the response to the pandemic was an opportunity for you at Deaf Talk.
Yes, true. Pandemic affected the operations of Deaf Talk and the mission of Deaf Talk, which is full and effective participation of the deaf community in the mainstream society, because deaf users utilize our services when they are out of their houses in order to meet doctors, school teachers, or their colleagues as well, or general public. But due to pandemic, they are stuck at home because of the lockdown situations, and they're not utilizing the services. That's where we pivoted a bit and tapping the businesses, service industries, hospitals, education to take part in it. Because it's this universal health part where they can easily tap the population of deaf community. It is important to provide equal and accessible information and education to the deaf community. So during that pandemic, we have rendered more than 35,000 hours of sign language services. We're tapping different webinars to make them inclusive by providing quality sign language services to them in order to make the participation of deaf community on that. We translated many contents, including the content for COVID-19 information through the government so that they can get the exact information what government is translating to the community. And last but not the least, we are working with the corporate sector to make the services such as hospitals. We receive more than 92 calls on everyday basis for hospital medical purposes, so they can be part of that health systems. That's how we are operating. And we believe that in future, the digital is the way to translate deaf community for making that in the mainstream part.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure and at moments difficult to hear from all of you as innovators who are doing what needs to be done to meet the needs of the communities that you serve so well and are embedded in. And I want to extend thanks on behalf of the global community that is here to witness you and cheer you on for that work. I'm also pleased to introduce a visitor to our panel, Ambassador Amir Khan, who has joined us. I'd like to invite you, Ambassador Khan, to say a few words, and maybe you could kick off the Q&A with a question about the plans that the innovators have, what their top priorities are, and how we as the global community might be able to meet those. So over to you, Ambassador Khan.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph, for inviting me to this wonderful discussion from these young innovators, including from my country, Pakistan, and for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of my government. Indeed, it was a very exciting discussion, listening to these young innovators and listening to how they have been able to respond to this global pandemic, which we are facing right now. In fact, this is a ray of hope. These young innovators, who are contributing so much in response to the massive human sufferings owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. We think that it is through these innovative solutions for communities and people, we can undo the catastrophic impacts of the pandemic and build resilience against future shocks, including by reaching out to vulnerable communities like you just spelled out at the beginning of your discussions. Let me inform you what my government has done during the pandemic, to use technology and leverage the innovations in making strides. For example, we harness domestic material and resources to produce personal protective equipment, hand sanitizers, testing kits, and ventilators. I'm pleased to share that through local innovations, Pakistan is now a net exporter of these equipments at competitive pricing. We have also developed apps including TeleSchool, telehealth, as well as early COVID-19 screening. And I'm very happy to see these young innovators, including from Pakistan, Ms. Sania Salim and Mr. Ali and Wamik, among these young innovators that are eager to contribute to the development of our country, and as well as in reaching out to the vulnerable communities, not only in Pakistan. I'm sure they will be striving to provide their services outside Pakistan as well, including in the neighboring countries. We have a very serious situation on our eastern border. I'm sure these young innovators can really be helpful in that regard. So I'm glad that their efforts have been recognized globally. If scaled up, these innovations have the potential to help millions of communities around the world in achieving the SDGs, which is an important framework for the United Nations, as we all know. Finally, I congratulate all innovators who have been selected for the STI Innovation Exhibit for the 2020 and 2021. And about your Q&A, I think it was quite an interactive session, and I have been able to listen to them in quite detail. They have some great plans. As far as the United Nations is concerned, we're really working hard to ensure that we are able to have a very accurate, efficient, and effective response to the COVID, including the vulnerable communities. We know there are millions and millions of refugees, and there are migrants who are caught up right now in many countries. There are displaced populations inside countries. There are people suffering from conflict. There are people suffering from foreign occupation. There are people suffering because of misgovernance and because of climate change. And there are so many problems. And I'm sure my question would be to these young innovators to also think in terms of responding to these distressing times when the UN is passing through. And I wish all of them good luck, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak at your program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Khan, for joining us and for sharing your words and your well wishes and your wisdom. I'm going to ask that because we have heard so much and in such rich detail about the communities that we have categorized as vulnerable, I'm going to ask that we put up a poll now for the audience that will allow us to understand how some of this presentation has engaged you, while I also ask that each of our panelists in a lightning round, so just a few words, not even sentences, in a few words, share with us what is next for you, your top priority, let's say, for the next year, and how the global community that is present here can support you. So the participants can please look for the panel, and then we will start by inviting Raymond, if you are still with us. Give us a few words on your priority and the support you need to achieve it.
Thank you very much, Kipi. I think for me, priorities would be to continuously strengthen community advocacy and the response, given the fact that we have realized as a result of this pandemic that we share a constant and thinking about the sustainability. We need to make sure that vulnerable groups, especially, also put on board and sharing their experiences and responding to various pandemics that are beyond the pandemic, because we have had the history where pandemics have come, and I think you need to think.
Thank you, Raymond. Yes, involving those directly affected in the work that we do is a critical point of design and organization for most of you, I believe. So let me turn to Ali and Wamik. In a few words, your priority and what we can do to support you to achieve it.
We always wanted to be the Google translator for the deaf community across the globe. As His Excellency Mr. Khan is saying, we have a huge problem with the eastern border, which is India. We would love to translate that services to the Indian brothers and sisters who are facing that during that pandemic. We would like to scale in the 5 developing countries who are really requiring desktop services such as Egypt, such as South Africa, and much more in African markets. In that particular panel, I would like to thank you, STI, for giving us the chance, and our partners, particularly UNDP, NCT Foundation, Acceleration, DSMA, who supported us to scale and sustain in that pandemic.
And we need a greater partnership to go to the lab, man. As leader, policymakers, investors, and change makers, I ask you to join the movement to bridge the communication gap. Let's work together to work an inclusive future where everyone, everywhere can fulfill their potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Wamik. Yes, towards an inclusive future. Sonia, would you like to share your priority and support that you require?
Thanks, QP. So our priority is to scale our model and then continue to innovate as we scale. For this, I think what we would need is more opportunities to highlight the work, the impact that the work that we're doing is having on improving lives, so that we can continue to garner more support, more resource support, and provide the services to the communities we serve.
Great. Thank you very much. Scale is a common theme here. Fanis, how are you looking to the next year, and what support do you need?
Right. Kipi, thank you so much. Healthcare Assistance Kenya runs a rapid response call center, which is manned 24 hours and serving the entire country, all the 47 counties of Kenya. Our desire and a priority would be this great innovation be known to vulnerable communities. They have the toll-free line, we have the toll-free line for them, but it is not known to them. GBV information is not with many. And so, especially women and girls, they continue suffering in silence. We want to be that organization that is supporting survivors without leaving anyone behind. Persons with disabilities. Our greatest technology is not with many. We use the SMS platform to get survivors access GBV services very quickly. Now, our priority then would be awareness creation, support to the call center. We increase the number of volunteer telecounselors, and then they should also be supported mentally because mental health for them is really wanting, because we work without any debriefing, no psychosocial support. So if we were to empower women and the girls, they will be able to break the silence around gender-based violence, which is actually the only way to end GBV that is rampant in Kenya. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that call to action, Fanis. I feel your energy. I feel the urgency. Vikrant, can you reply, speaking as someone who yourself is addressing GBV, what is the priority for Fight Back and what support do you need?
The priority for Fight Back at the moment the major priority is to scale, and we want to introduce our online module. That's one of our priority. We are part of Grand Challenges Canada Transition to Scale program, and we've been awarded an innovation grant, which is subject to mass fundraise. So we are seeking investors and funders who would help us leverage this innovation grant so that we can scale things up, one. The second thing is we are also seeking partnerships with potential stakeholders to enter new markets regionally or any part of the world. So we are open to that conversation. So yeah, so these are the two main things which are in my main priority list. Thank you.
Thank you. What we have heard is the common theme of needing to mobilize others in order to ensure that these vital services and interventions can scale to the members of the vulnerable communities that need them. And that is our job. That is the job of this audience and of the global community that the UN STI Forum brings together. And I want to thank our audience for being part of this. We will now see, I believe, a slide that has the panelists' email addresses so that you may, as the audience, get in touch with any, and I would encourage you all of these innovators, especially if you have support of the kind that they just articulated their innovations need to scale, to create awareness, to meet the fundraising goals. And this is the work that we do in this sector. We are constantly focused on how we can increase the service reach, as well as advocate and influence the systems in which we work. So it's my pleasure to say thank you, and it's been my honor to get to know you and to work with you, panelists and innovators. Thank you for the work that you do, for the risk that you take on behalf of us all to address that vulnerability, which we know is present everywhere, even within each of us. At this point, I'm going to officially close our panel and encourage the audience to stay tuned for the education panel that will follow. And I will turn it over to the team from the forum and from Results for Development to make that transition. Thank you again, and have a great afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are.